Despite recent rumors that the bulk of DICE's development team has moved on from working on Battlefield 2042 and looking forward ahead to other titles, that has now been denied, and also it's been really hard on DICE with the players being so disappointed with them. So we're going to talk about their special little feelings, because it's been really hard.
It's really hard. It's really hard.
Also, we've got some updated specs for the RTX 40 series, which should be launching at some time later this year, which is now rumored to be around September, October. It's been pushed up by about a month from where we were originally hypothesizing. Also, AMD FSR 2.0 is now open source and available for developers to access freely and utilize in their games. So let's get fired into it. But first, today's video is brought to you by Keysfan.com and their software super deal, where you can get some of the best prices out there on Microsoft software. Especially with my coupon code, you can get half off of Windows keys, as well as 62% off on Microsoft Office products like Windows 10 Pro, Windows 11 Pro, and Office 2019 Professional Plus, and Office 2021 Professional Plus. And they've also got a bundle with Windows 10 Pro and Office 2019 in the same package. To save money on Windows 10 Pro, just go ahead and add the key to your cart, which starts off at $15.17. But once you get into your cart, you can go ahead and apply my discount code at checkout, YTB50, and that will give you a shocking 50% off, bringing the price down to just over $7 at $7.58. And when you proceed to checkout, you can pay with either a credit card or PayPal, whichever one happens to fit your needs. And this also applies to Microsoft Office products, but again, you're going to get 62% off on Office products with the code YTB62 at checkout. Applying that to the $67.40 price, Office 2019 brings the price down to a stunning $25.61. So I don't know what you're waiting for. If you need your software keys, head over to Keysfan.com right now and be sure to use those coupon codes at checkout. YTB50 on Windows products for half off, and YTB62 for 62% off on Microsoft Office products. First up, let's talk about the game that is everyone's favorite game to hate, Battlefield 2042, which launched in an absolute shit show state, and up until now, they've been polishing the turd a little bit here and there. It took them about 5 months to add in a fucking scoreboard and VoIP, but hey, they're making progress, aren't they? Battlefront 2 also got a lot of shit at launch, and, you know, that was mostly focusing on microtransactions, which outside of that was actually a pretty solid title. But, you know, they worked on it, they've got it better over time, so maybe there's still hope yet for Battlefield 2042, but DICE has said that they are only focusing on Battlefield 2042 right now, and it's been very hard on them as a development team with the players' disappointment in the title.
It's really hard. It's really hard.
Rebecca, I spell my name incorrectly, Kutaz, says that we are only focusing on Battlefield 2042. There is no time for anything else, and this is what we want to do. In 3 years, we want to be the first-person shooter powerhouse that DICE deserves to be, and that is what we're going for. Is that a realistic roadmap? Are they really saying that this game is not going to be what it should be until 3 years from now? Damn. I mean, some games launch in an early state and people make the jokes that it launched in as like a beta, but holy shit, if it's going to take them 3 years to become the powerhouse they want to be, this is barely fucking pre-alpha still at this point, and that kind of shows with the fact that they didn't even have a scoreboard or VoIP at launch, and it took them months to even to be able to implement that. So maybe they mean overall, and they'll have other titles coming out between now and then, but I don't know how they're going to do that if this is going to be their sole focus, as they're promising. So we'll have to keep an eye on it and monitor it. And when asked whether the studio considered moving on from Battlefield 2042 given the negative reaction, Kutaz states that they owe it to the Battlefield players to make 2042 right, and says that the disappointment from the shooter was really hard on the studio. So, sorry guys, you may have hurt their feelings with your disappointment. But then again, I think our feelings and our wallets were hurt a little bit more than their feelings and the shit show that game was. And maybe Electronic Arts is more to blame. As, you know, many people know, this is really not the original people that were working on the Battlefield games back in the day over at DICE. It's pretty much completely new people over there, and they obviously were trying to go into the Warzone cash grab type of game model, and then they just sort of stopped halfway through that and tried to make it a regular Battlefield title, but also not, by getting rid of classes and the things that make Battlefield. And it was very obvious from the start, and I guess they're trying to, backpedal on that now and trying to make it more of a traditional Battlefield experience. But I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. Maybe a year or two from now, it might start to actually resemble a Battlefield title, but until then, I honestly won't be touching it. Next up, we have some more rumored RTX 40 series specs, the Ada Lovelace graphics cards, which are supposed to be coming out later this year. And as usual, the source of these rumors is Copite7 over on Twitter, who had tweeted out today, June 23rd, some updated specs on these graphics cards. According to Copite over on videocards.com, the RTX 4090 would actually be getting more cores than were previously reported, and instead of having the 16,128 CUDAs, it will now be bumped up to 16,384, and then upgrade from 126 SMs to 128. So the full configuration of the 8102 GPU supposedly has 144 cores, and it would be a roughly 450 watt TDP. We could see the rest of the rumored specs here for the RTX 4080 and 4070, and you can see that the GPU for the 4090 is 8102-300, and this time around, like previously rumored, the RTX 4080 will actually be a completely different GPU, the AD103, and not just a cut-down version of the RTX 4090 like we had seen in previous generations from NVIDIA with RTX and even going back into GTX. And we've got a jump here in the specs on the 4090, as you can see, as we just previously went over, and a roughly 450 watt TDP, and it's expected around September, October later this year. And we've also got some of the first rumored specs for the RTX 4080 and 4070, and you'll be able to see these here compared with the 4090. So going from 128 SMs down to 80, 16,384 CUDA cores to 10,240. So definitely a significant amount. It seems like the 4090 will actually be a pretty decent bump in performance over the RTX 40, and not the usual like maybe 5 to 10% that we usually see. This actually looks like the 4090 will be significantly faster, and also not as big of a leap in performance as seen with previous generations. So the 4090 actually has 56% more CUDA versus the RTX 3090, while the 3080 is only seeing an increase in 18%. So it seems like if you're staying around that 3080 range or even 3070, you're not going to see as significant an increase in performance over the previous generation for the same series, and the RTX 4070 is the same with that, only getting a 21% increase in CUDA versus the RTX 3070, which is typically where the bulk of the performance comes from. Apart from some CUDA optimization, they may be faster per core on some level, but it doesn't really happen a huge amount from generation to generation, although last gen was actually a very big bump over previous ones. So we're probably not going to see that big of a leap in per core performance. It's likely going to scale pretty linearly with the amount of CUDA cores that they slap onto the RTX 40 series GPUs. And for memory, we're still sticking with 24 gigabytes on the 4090, 16 gigabytes on the 4080, and the 4070 is rumored at 12 gigabytes, but now that's been dropped down to 10 gigabytes in this recent rumor. But as always with rumors and leaks, please take them all with a grain of salt, and hopefully we see all three of these cards coming out by the end of 2022. Moving over to the AMD side, FSR 2.0, which launched fairly recently, has only been available in a small handful of titles like God of War, Deathloop, and Farming Simulator 22. It has now gone open source. You can get access to it on GPU Open, and you could try to implement it into your own games if you happen to be a developer. And since FSR 2.0 works similarly to DLSS, working with things like motion vectors, the hypothesis and the assertion from AMD is that games that already support DLSS will be much easier to implement with FSR 2.0, typically only requiring a couple of days of work from a development team to put FSR 2.0 into a game that already has DLSS. So with that being said, and with this being open source and working on any AMD or NVIDIA graphics card, as long as it's capable of DirectX 12 or Vulkan. What I'm really curious to see is if modders will be able to use this and maybe get it working in DLSS-supported titles quicker than maybe some development studios would be willing or able to do, because maybe they're not dedicating any more time to some of these games that already have DLSS and trying to add in FSR 2.0 into those titles to, bring some advantage there to AMD players so that they can utilize it and get better performance in those titles. So, yeah, let me know if there's any DLSS titles out there you'd like to see get FSR 2.0. Like I said, I'm very curious to see how difficult it would be to implement, and maybe modders can start working on that now and, make mods available that'll just add FSR 2.0 into existing DLSS titles, and then AMD users can take advantage of it. That'll be pretty cool, honestly. And FSR 2.0, huge leap over FSR 1.0. Still not quite where DLSS is, but it's pretty damn close, honestly. When you're really looking at it and comparing it side by side, you really are starting to split hairs when you're comparing them, but it does lean a little bit still towards DLSS, although performance increases have been pretty much on par. It really comes down to the visuals, and you really have to be pixel peeping and zooming in really, really close in most instances in order to be able to see any difference, apart from certain areas in certain games. Like we said, we have a very small sample size at this point, only 3 games utilizing it, but there is some more shimmering still present when using FSR 2.0 when compared to DLSS on titles like God of War, which I did a video on about a month or so ago when they got the FSR 2.0 patch on that. So still not quite up to DLSS, but it's pretty damn close and still worth using for people that are struggling to get 60 frames in games. And yeah, hopefully we see some modders out there doing it soon, if that's even possible with it being open source. I would like to think that it should be possible for some people to go ahead and do. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Hope you guys all have a fantastic day. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on all the stories that we covered here today, and I'll catch you guys next time for another video. Peace.